Sorry, folks, I was halfway through an apple.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
Is that just about everybody? We expect anyone else?
I don't know if vopperough wanted to come in.
We could probably just get started and he can join in.
Yeah, he's in Dark Souls right now, so he's probably getting the shit kicked out of him by something. He'll be a while. Just until he manages to kill Ornstein and Smog.
Alright. So, anybody have anything to start off with?
I do, kind of. So, Zargabox, were you planning to betray me at any point at all?
Not at any point up until I got thoroughly destroyed by everybody else.
See, I spent almost the entire beginning of that game, like right up until you were attacked, convinced that I was going to be your first target.
You see, I was never planning to move on to you to start with, because you were the least threat to me. Because I had 3 other people surrounding me who were far more likely. So I always figured you were surrounded by like 4 other people, and like you'd be far too busy to kind of care about what I was doing. So my concern primarily was with Blackbird, which was the biggest threat to me, and who was the other side? Who am I? Who was on the other side? Who were kind of rapidly encroaching on me. And I just kind of ignored you and thought I'll be fine for now.
Yeah, I think that what happened was, basically on the forums, somebody said, it was TheToby, said that there was a lot of diplomacy to keep track of, and that I should be careful. And at the time, I thought for sure that TheToby was Blackbird. So it sounded like he was talking about that you were going to attack me, and that's when I started that mutual defense pact with both you and Blackbird, convinced that one of you was going to attack me.
Well, everything kind of went sideways for me because I decided to kind of launch an attack on TheToby literally 2 ticks before Blackbird launched an all-out assault on my other border, which meant I was completely screwed from that point because I didn't have anywhere near enough ships to defend against attacks from both sides. And you were obviously involved in your own conflict, and everyone else that I tried to say, by the way, now would be a good time to attack Blackbird and TheToby because they're busy, just kind of ignored me and carried on with what they were doing.
Yeah, because Toby had a firm alliance with Skelldorn at that point, right?
Yeah, I was... When you contacted me about attacking Who Am I, there was no way that I was going to take you up on that offer.
Because at that point, that was my only hope, that I could get somebody else involved in attacking one of them just to kind of distract them enough that I had a chance of survival. But otherwise, there was nothing I could do. I was kind of on par with them, and I suffered really badly because I didn't get any technology traded early in the game, so everybody else very rapidly outpaced me.
Yeah, it was just really unfortunate timing, because I absolutely would have attacked Blackbird at that point. Like, I'd actually went out for a walk after the attack started, for like an hour thinking about it, and I was just like, I have to do this. I have to attack Blackbird, because I made that deal. But I just did not have the ships. Like, if I'd moved any ships out of where I had them, Mega Slippers would have completely retaken his entire empire, because he just had that many ships available.
Well, I kind of took the view that it was just incredibly bad luck on my part. If I had just been like 2 ticks slower in launching my attack, I wouldn't have engaged in that combat, and I probably would have been able to fight off Blackbird.
No, there was an attack planned on you for about 3 ticks later anyways, so...
Oh, okay, well, I didn't
You were screwed anyway.
Well, it's good to know that it wasn't entirely my fault and I'd have been knackered whatever I did.
Oh yeah, and I kind of knew about that attack in advance. I kind of knew that they were planning something. Sorry.
Oh, well, that makes it even better.
No, I wasn't deliberately intending to screw you over. It's just that, like, I wasn't sure that who was going to attack you, and I also was pretty sure that who and Skelldorn had some kind of conflict going on, because I don't know. I thought this for the entire game, and I don't know why. I think it's just that their empires were so close and so powerful that I thought surely they're going to be worried about each other.
Well, I just assumed that they would be in conflict just because of the borders. Like, I was in a really bad position because I effectively had, well, nearly 5 people surrounding me. I mean, Skelldorn wasn't quite on the border until whoever it was who got wiped out in between. Chairman
Poor
Sprack,
Chairman Sprack.
Yeah, who got kind of sandwiched between it. But at that point, I kind of thought, I don't know what I can do here to actually kind of push out safely, and I was just hoping that everyone else would be involved in conflicts and give me a chance. But unfortunately, everybody else was being nice.
Odward, do you want to explain why our borders were so close and the monetary agreement we had?
Okay, so the monetary agreement was partially brought on because of what was happening with Chairman Sprack. Who am I? And I had I'm forgetting what it was right now, but we had promised a trade. It was a border. It was a planet, a star that I was trying to get to, but I could only get to it by jumping off of a star we had agreed that Who Am I would take. So I said, well, I go through there, I'll improve some infrastructure for you, either economy or industry, whatever you want. And he said, yeah, sure, that sounds good. But when I got to that star, it had very, very low resources, so it was extremely expensive to do the infrastructure upgrade. So I said, okay, when you take the star, I'll give you the money for it. But then Sprack started attacking me, and so I had to put all my money into the war. So I didn't want Who Am I to think I was not an honorable person and to start attacking me. So I said, what can I do to make sure that he wants me around? And I told him I would pay for the actual cost of the upgrades, and with extraordinary interest. And so for, I think it was about 10 cycles, I was giving him 30 credits at the beginning of every cycle.
So it was basically a bribe to keep him friendly.
That was the reason I paid so much. I wanted to be sure that he still wanted me around, and then we became cooperating friends after that.
There was a lot of technology trades in those 10 cycles as well.
Yeah, I think that was my big failing, was that I didn't get any technology trades done early on, and then by the time it suddenly occurred to me it would be a good idea, there wasn't really anybody who I could trade with who was willing to, or had the money to do it. And so I ended up in a situation where everyone else was trading and getting ahead of me, and I was just falling further and further behind.
Yeah, I kind of made a mistake when I was, like, when I wonder if some of my early trading is one of the reasons why so much technology got traded around, because I traded something different with almost everybody on the map, and then everybody else had incentive to trade that with each other, and then within like 2 cycles, I think, everybody had level 2 and everything.
Yeah, that's why I guess that what I did was I got 1 level of scanning, and I promised like 3 or 4 people on the other side of the map that they could have my scanning for each for a different technology. So I ended up trading really beneficially for me, really, because they all got my scanning, but I got like a full Tech 2 out of just my scanning, basically.
But somehow, unfortunately, you weren't able to keep that up, because I tried to keep up our trade agreements, but you quickly fell behind the rest of the galaxy, and it was harder and harder to give charity. And I wonder if the end game could have been different if you had managed to maintain an even keel with everybody.
Yeah, the problem I think is I really neglected my science because it's ridiculously expensive, obviously, and I was trying for a bit too long to keep my upgrades like centered on high resource planets. just to make it easily defendable, because I was scared shitless by Anelect, and after that by Kane, who just had massive forces stationed right across from my large planet. So I was really just a bit too scared to invest in the much more efficient tech, and I fell behind in economy and I fell behind in science because of that. And only when I started using the buy cheapest option later on, after I came back in the game, after I left, and Kane told me that was a good idea, only then I really started to come back slightly. Also, the AI did a great job of really a better job than me of getting me back into the infrastructure race.
I was actually surprised how long the AI kept me in the game after I gave up, because I abandoned after I'd lost about probably half of my planets either side to Blackbird and to Who Am I, and I realised at that point that there was realistically nothing that I could do, because they had not only did they have the ships in numbers, but they'd also taken most of my infrastructure. So I couldn't have anything. I mean, you can't just turtle in this game because you need the planets to be able to keep up the infrastructure. But I mean, the AI kept me in the game for quite a long time. I think mostly just by running carriers between stars that meant that they kept either recapturing weakly defended ones or just kind of moving the ships around enough that they could keep things going.
Yeah, the AI is actually a lot smarter than you think, because if you send a technology to the AI, they will send you back something of equal value. So they trade with players, but also they trade with each other really, really aggressively. Like, they team up against the humans when they, at least that's in the most recent update. So if you have 2 or 3 AIs that are all close together, they'll do essentially what Skelldorn and Who were doing, and they'll just trade everything so that their technology rapidly outpaces everybody.
Well, that's slightly terrifying.
And so they don't ever attack, however.
As far as I can tell, no, because I've been in 2 games so far, and both of them have had a number of AIs, and all they seem to do is just build up. I should ask on the forums if there's any plan to make them attack, but no, they just seem to play defensively.
Because
It might.
that would have changed a lot, because I waited until I was completely finished with Chairman Sprack before I started trying to move out on the AI. But if I had known they weren't going to attack, I would have done them at the same time.
Yeah, same here. I had no idea about that until I had spent 4 days just sieging Mesa, and I was looking down at the AIs there. And surely they're going to attack me at some point. I've got nothing on the border, and it just never happened. So
Yeah, they might keep track of absolute ship numbers, and in that case, they were always behind you guys, I think. So, I mean, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty difficult to keep track of how the action radius of ships and that kind of thing. So, I guess the easiest way to program the AI would be to have them attack whenever they have more ships than you do, or something like that.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, but it still seems like they've not. I suppose it gets to the point where you don't want to make the AI too hard, because otherwise, if you get a player that leaves, or you've just got AI players for whatever reason, it becomes impossible, because obviously the AI can always think and react instantly, whereas you don't have that benefit because you have to do things like sleep, and also is fully aware of all the facts. It knows all the ship numbers. And effectively it cheats, because all AI does, and you can put as much restriction as you can to kind of limit how it can cheat, but it's going to know things that you don't, or at the very least can calculate things that are difficult for you to work out without spending ages writing it all down and trying to figure out the numbers.
Yeah, I do think though that no matter how smart they make the AI, it's always going to be outperformed by players, just because.
Well, it depends on the players.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Oh, also, I wanted to say, NinjaOx, the reason that you fell behind, or the problem with you falling behind, or the reason that that was a problem, was because nobody on your alliance, for some reason, seemed to be sending you technology. Like, when I made that alliance with Jammy and vopperough, I sent them, everything. I probably transferred, 20 levels or 40 levels of technology over the course of about 3 days. So it, rapidly pushed them up, and there was every reason to do that, because I was screwed if they didn't attack my enemies, and if they did attack my enemies while weak, they wouldn't be able to do anything. But for some reason, both Odward and Toby had lots of technology, and they didn't send it to you.
Yeah, but I guess
money.
Well, yeah, I didn't get any money either. I think I didn't get anything from you guys. It was kind of sad when that happened. But I saw that you guys weren't really that happy about attacking Kane, even at the very last second. So I guess the problem was I was probably the most ardent about attacking Kane, but I didn't have anything to trade, obviously. So I couldn't really ask. I felt I couldn't really ask for anything, really, because I really wanted to keep everyone happy. So yeah, I never really got any tech, I guess. But by that point, I had already fallen behind. So if I hadn't fallen behind in science, I would have had something to trade, and we would have, I guess, all been stronger as a result.
I think that's part of the problem, is the fact that you have to pay to give people technologies, and it becomes, especially early on, it becomes quite difficult to be able to, like, if you happen to mistime it, it can be very difficult because you suddenly find, I can't afford to give you these technologies, and there's no kind of, it's not like if it's a mutual trade, it's free. It's like you have to pay per level of technology to give it to somebody. And I actually used my parting gift to the galaxy before I quit was to give away all the technologies that I had, what little there was, to anybody who hadn't got that level of technology yet, just because I had like 200 credits left and there was nothing else useful I could do with them.
Oh, it remains expensive right up until the end, because, like, if you look at the graphs, there's, like, almost no change in my economy and industry for 4 days, because almost every dollar I was making was going into tech transfers.
Also, remember that at the end, you had, like, over 10,000 credits a day, whereas I was quickly dwindling. I've always mismanaged my economy, so I gave Glorbax as much as I could. I would have done more if I'd had more money.
Oh yeah, I was definitely Croesus sitting on a gigantic pile of gold at the end there. Like, investment in economy is just, like, it just builds like a friggin' avalanche.
Yeah, but it's the same as anything. It's the trade-off of, like, where do you put it? Because obviously the economy advances don't pay off for several ticks, whereas the other ones, like the industry and science, are effective immediately. But over the lifetime of the game, the economy ones benefit you kind of proportionally more because of the way that it accumulates. But it is a shame there's no way to turn off to change the cost of technology trading. I'm assuming there isn't an option that just says, like, you know, technology trades are free in the game settings.
I'll take a look.
Because it just seems silly. Like, if you want to be altruistic, it costs you extra.
Yeah, there's nothing about trading cost.
I had sent Glorbax some technology, but I'd also spent a lot of money sending Jammy lots of weapons.
Oh,
just
God,
before
yeah.
you betrayed.
I did that too.
Thank you for that.
It was you? I assumed it was
About
Kane.
4 levels, yeah.
I sent some signs too. I think we both did. Some weapons.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Okay, the interesting thing about the economy thing, though, is that that's how science works in every other 4X game. Like, I've said on the forum a few times that I don't like the Disharmony expansion to Endless Space, but there's a lot of people who really, really were excited about it, because the thing it does is it nerfs the race that does really good science, and it's just because, basically, the way science works in every other 4X game is that it's the risky long-term strategy, where it just builds on itself constantly until the point which you've got weapons technology way better than the military races do. You've got a better economy than the economic races do. But that doesn't actually happen in Neptune's Pride, because the cost of technology, or the cost of research, keeps going up, and the benefit you get from it goes down, and also the cost of adding science onto your planets is just hideously expensive. So the only way to really have sort of really, really fast-moving science is to be in a science treaty with another player. But with economy, it's so cheap, and you can just keep building it up, that it basically works the way science does in other 4X games.
Yeah, it's the only one that kind of... Because it's the same with the industry. The industry, although obviously is kind of similarly cheap compared to the economy rather than science, it still doesn't have that kind of cumulative benefit that the economy does. And of course, if you rank up the banking as well, you get the increased benefit from it. But it does seem like early on, if you can take that risk that you're not going to be attacked too quickly and put a lot of focus into the economy, it seriously benefits you later on, especially if you're trading the technology so that you don't fall behind in science.
Yeah, that how long am I going to be in the game calculation is important in just a lot of things. Like, same with experimentation. You know, I was looking at that and thinking, am I going to survive another 40 days? Nothing's happened in the past 2 weeks. Am I going to survive another 2 weeks? You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose it depends whether you look at it as lucky or unlucky, but my first experimentation was in experimentation, which basically meant that I then figured, well, I might as well finish the research in it, and had level 2, which meant kind of early on I was getting effectively a free level 1 technology every turn, but I was getting horrendously bad random rolls to the point that I kept getting like experimentation in the same technology, and I still had like 2 or 3 that were level 1, and I was just getting experimentation giving me, oh look here, have some more terraforming. It's like, well, this is great, but I'm now like level 3 terraforming and the experimentation bonus is negligible, and I've still only got level 1 scanning.
Yeah, I actually pushed experimentation really hard. I never noticed that you got it before me, but yeah, that was my strategy in the early game, was to get a lot of experimentation early and just hope that it built up all my other technology, because at that point the amount of the ratio between the benefit you get from experimentation and the cost of upgrading your technology, that's like the best point to have it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it purely came down to just how horrendously unlucky I got with the research rolls. Like, if you know, it could well be, if you get lucky, if you get experimentation level 2 straight away, then you know, within like 6 ticks, you could potentially have level 2 in everything. But in reality, you're not going to get that most of the time.
Watching,
Go ahead.
Watching Kane's research shoot up in the early game, which I guess some of it was through trades, really made me latch on to experimentation. And then there was, at the end of the Great Galactic Peace, there was a time where each cycle, I did not consider it a full cycle if I did not gain a level of weapons, a level of experimentation, and finish whatever tech experimentation had unlocked the previous night.
Well, of
yeah,
course,
you got
the dynamic will change considerably if we're playing with a dark galaxy, because it radically shifts the importance of scanning in terms of the technologies, especially early on.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's also I can't remember whether it's for the really, really big games or for its games with very large and far galaxy settings, or small and far galaxy settings, but there's a way to set up the galaxy so that basically it's impossible for a person to play if they don't start with like level 3 hyperspace.
Yes,
so
I saw that mandatory in the settings as the warnings, like, you know, warning if you set this to far or very far and you don't have everyone start with like level 2 hyperspace, then it's going to be like 3 weeks before anyone can get off their starting planet.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Dark Galaxy, because yeah, you're right, like that scanning, you know, nobody really seemed to be going for it except for NinjaOx, who was able to use it as a bargaining chip until, I don't know, midway through the game.
Yeah, I tried to get it just so that I could see what was happening on my borders. I think I got up to level 2, maybe level 3, and then I could see what Blackbird and Who Am I were doing on their border planets, so I had some idea at least if they were starting to stage ships there. But beyond that, it didn't really seem beneficial, because I thought, well, because again, it's not something, it doesn't increase, as it's not as a lot of technologies, it's not what you expect. It's not a linear increase in scanning range. They're all, you know, like X plus some amount. And as a consequence, you find that like each level you go up gives you a kind of a diminishing expansion in your scanning range, and it just doesn't become worth it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I still think scanning is really underestimated. I think it's really good, because it basically allowed me, when I was up against Anelect at the start, before we had a big war, there was one planet I really wanted that he had, and I could, because I knew that he had nothing on the other side of it, I was free to take him. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been able to. And I think, especially later in the game, it becomes really good to have high scanning. I think it's one of the best scaling techs, really, along with manufacturing and weapons, probably.
Yeah, what you ideally need is you need enough scanning that you can see to the planet you want to attack, and then from that planet to your enemy's hyperspace range, so that you can see potentially anywhere they could jump in from.
Yeah, I do disagree on weapons, though. I did a calculation on the forum somewhere. I can't remember in what thread.
Yeah,
it shows...
trails off so rapidly, that one.
Yeah, well, the efficiency for defending basically decreases, really. But that means that it's essential to have high weapons, really, because otherwise defending becomes so inefficient. You always need to have... It's not that weapons itself makes you better. It's just that as people as you fall behind in weapons, you rapidly lose in efficiency. And since efficient trading is really what this game is about in terms of combat, I think weapons really is essential.
Well, yeah, like you said, it's only as essential as everybody else having it. It's kind of one of those weird things where it doesn't actually make that much of a difference, but because somebody else has got it, you have to have it, and it turns into a kind of pointless arms race. Because as long as you've got at least equal weapons tech to the other side, you've got a chance. Although obviously the defender bonus scales off rapidly as the game advances, but it's not really essential if nobody has it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, pretty much, and. Yeah, it's more about it's about the difference between yours and everybody else's, and that can become significant in the late game because you can go from, if you're really smart, you can go from 20 weapons to 25 weapons in a cycle, if you've got the science for it, and that is that 25% difference right there. So.
So, I mean, after I kind of abandoned things because it was I kind of kept track for a little bit, but then I kind of stopped because there didn't seem a great deal of point in kind of keeping track of it tick to tick. But, I mean, towards the end, I can see kind of roughly the end state of the game, but were there still substantial conflicts going on, or was it very much kind of a tidying up of victories?
It was very much over at the end. I had, I've still got some ships on the run if you look at the current situation.
Yes,
but, I was basically... Well, I said on the forums, I was trying to delay Kane hitting the 131 planet line, because I've sent... I don't know if you can see those, but I've sent some ships straight for Jammy's homeworld, because I just wanted to take revenge for that, for betrayal. This is basically spite. So... I just wanted to take... It's called Mahassim, I can see it now. But, it didn't really work out. Because, I think the moment Kane took more than 2 or 3 planets from me, it was over. Because then, at that point, he was outproducing me in the theatre, and then Willikins turned to Skelldorn, and then it all went to hell. It was really over at that point.
I think that's kind of the problem, is that once if you lose a couple of high-value planets, it becomes very difficult to counter. If you don't stop an attack immediately, then it's very, very difficult to stop it from snowballing and you just being destroyed, as long as the enemy has sufficient ships to kind of keep up the assault.
Yeah, I guess true, but defending is a lot easier than attacking, I think. Because,
only early on, though.
No, I think late game too, because you can see people, you can respond to the enemy who need to commit ships to
that is true.
Hours
depending on obviously your layout, because you can get. I mean, I got really unlucky in a couple of cases where just I couldn't. I was further away from the planets than everyone. Just the layout of the planets meant that almost every planet that was being attacked, my ships were further away than the staging point for the enemy, which meant I had to commit to defend before they committed to attack, which kind of screwed me completely, which is probably why I've got a kind of skewed perspective on it.
Yeah, both with Glorbax and with Who, getting to their territory took, even with warp gates, it took 10 hours or something like that, 10, 12 hours, which meant that they did have time to move ships in to defend. And to be fair, with Who, he kept up that fight really, really well for a really long time, even though I captured, I think, 6 or 7 really, really high-quality planets. So it is possible to defend. It's just a matter of having allies and being able to split your enemy's forces.
Yeah, by the looks of it, you took all the really nice planets that I had before they got taken.
I did have the benefit of taking a lot of Blackbird's planets as well, which was helping my industry and economy.
I think that they were formerly my planets, weren't they?
I got pretty far into his territory before he took it all back again, though.
Yeah, in fact, looking at the final galaxy, the planets that Kane holds between you and Blackbird are basically the planets that I had before I completely bollocksed up my combat strategy and died.
Fad was your home planet, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I got further than that against Blackbird before he...
No, sorry, Fad was it? Yes, sorry, I was slightly further over. So Fad was my home planet. I had Thuban and Nariba on that side and out to Thabit, and then on the left-hand side I was kind of as far as Sheraton, and then that was where it kind of all went horribly wrong. So yeah, like Kane had most of my kind of planets, but hadn't quite moved into sort of the Fad and Marthic and Al-Rami to the right.
Speaking of that war, what did you think, when you saw that comedy ship deployment on Blackbird's side when he sent 22,000 ships in the wrong direction?
I didn't have a clue what was happening. But
neither did I, and neither did he, actually. None of us knew what was going on there.
I knew I had to take it, though, because it was so strong in economy and industry that it just crippled him for a while.
Which planet was that?
Fad, yeah.
Ah, yeah.
The plan was that I would get you on the... I would occupy Gienna and hope that you would desperately try to shake me off there because it's such an important system. And then Blackbird would attack through Fad to Deshubba and then up into the north, and then would split you between north and south. But then Blackbird's ship moving in the wrong direction meant that you could just completely crush him. Like you took like half of his territory easily in a couple of cycles.
Yeah, but then you got to the point where I had to bring all my ships back to try and defend, and I just let him take everything back again.
I think that's the thing. If you've got a bigger, you just have to look at the map and you can see that there was such a kind of numbers advantage that Kane had at the end. That okay, the ships are quite spread out, and you've got battles on 3 or 4 fronts going on. But if you've got the kind of the infrastructure to support it, you're not really going to be able to do much to counter it once it reaches that point.
Well, I still hold it. It was a 50-50 chance. If Jammy still here, or did he disconnect again? Well, if Jammy took our side, which he could have done, and I still think that would have made a more interesting game. He could have cut straight through Kane's central planets, which are really high value, and but he had to move all his ships to the eastern and western front to attack us, obviously. So I think Willikins had the perfect opportunity to split Kane in half, basically, and that would have made, I think, for a bit more interesting game. But the moment he switched sides, Kane could move all his ships out of his center. He could neglect his southern front, and he already was neglecting his northern front because Blackbird was there, and he could crush us, basically.
So
Yeah,
Would have let Odward...
I was wondering, Kane, why... so when I killed off Skelldorn, the biggest theory behind his assassination that I came up with was that Glorbax had sent an assassin through Willikins' territory. And I proposed this theory to Kane, and you basically said that you'd have to see more evidence. And I was wondering why you said that, because I was sort of giving you an opportunity for me to work with you to take out Glorbax by cutting through Willikins.
Yep, that's what I saw too. And the reason I declined was because at that point I had already agreed with Willikins that we would crush you. Like that's how long the alliance had stood. Like you guys, from the minute one that you guys were planning to attack me, Jammy was already on my side.
It's too bad Jammy seems to have disconnected again. He keeps... Look at the feed here, he keeps disconnecting and connecting again.
Yeah, he's having some serious trouble there. Actually, I'm gonna ask him on Steam what's going on.
Yeah. That's karma for you.
Yeah, definitely. He basically decided how that was going to go, because you're right, my southern border was completely undefended. Like, I had probably, 600 ships an hour of shipbuilding that he could have taken in 2 ticks, and yeah, I would have just been done at that point.
Yeah, it's just I guess I was the only one really playing a pragmatist, and I will always play a pragmatist. I was just playing to win, basically. As much as I enjoyed shouting at Kane in the Assembly of Nations, I was really just telling everyone, "Come on, guys, he's going to win if we don't do anything like soon." But I was really sad when Willikins moved against us.
Which, I mean, I have to say, in principle, it's really surprising that Kane managed to win, because he was right in the middle, and, like, any number of people could have just teamed up and crushed him early on. But instead, it seems like everybody teamed up with somebody else to take out one of their other neighbours, and just kind of left him, I guess, assuming, well, somebody else will deal with him, because he's completely surrounded. And as a consequence, went on and won.
Yeah, No, go ahead.
There's also the problem of expanding into the middle is more dangerous in that you're gaining more neighbours as you expand.
Yeah, you're
whereas if you expand sideways, yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Basically, I started in a terrible position, and anybody that wanted to attack me would have to join me in this terrible, terrible position. But also, I did put some work in the beginning of the game to trying to get diplomatic relations with as many nations as possible, just so I'd have allies. So that the idea was that if anybody attacks me, they've got two people on either side that hopefully I can con into attacking them, and it did kind of work out that way.
Yeah, my problem was that I just kind of I just arranged kind of non-aggression with Blackbird and Who Am I, and it kind of fell apart because I didn't have any allies to call on when it all kind of went horribly wrong. And, like, you know, as you said, you were kind of too busy with your ships elsewhere to kind of do anything about Blackbird, and there was nothing I could do at that point because I had nobody that was willing to help me.
Yeah, and Mega Slippers wasn't... Did anybody have any conversations with Mega Slippers? I don't think he sent any diplomatic messages.
No, when I sent him a message basically saying, okay, I'm going to help you. There was at a point when he was already basically lost. I said, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you all the weapons and manufacturing I can spare. But I want you to give me intelligence on both Kane and especially Analex, because I was already planning to attack Analex at some point. So I asked him for information. He just never responded. He just... took my tech, and he just held out on his own planet.
Yeah, I think that the game might have gone really differently for Spad if Mega Slippers had been actually even able to attack Blackbird, because there's like 5 or 6 light years between any system that Mega Slippers controlled and Blackbird systems, just because there's 2 huge gulfs with like a line of shitty planets in the middle. Like literally the worst planets in the entire game. They had like 4 or 5 resources
I
each.
See them.
God, yeah.
And like when I sent him this like threatening letter, telling him not to, or telling him that I was going to take those planets and that he could keep the really really nice one on our border. Expecting that surely at least one of those is going to be good, and then I went through that whole line, and every single one of them was terrible. And that was early in the game. I couldn't do anything with those. I had like no terraforming.
Well, we did that trade very early on, just with the 2 planets that were outside both of our scanning ranges, and I suggested that we basically just effectively flip a coin, take one each, and just kind of, because, you know, see how it worked out. And then it turned out they were both basically awful.
Yeah, and we had that bet, didn't we? We had the bet that
five credit bet.
Whoever has the shittiest planet gets $10, essentially.
Yeah, which turned out to be me by a fair margin. But even so, I think because it was Polaris and Alzir, wasn't it? And Polaris was bad, but Alzir was just awful. And I mean, I've just been looking around at the thing, and like the vast majority of like planets in the middle of nowhere at the outside edge of the systems are shit. Like, there's a couple of exceptions, but almost all of the planets around the very rim of the galaxy are terrible. And you would hope that they kind of put it the other way and kind of try and make it so the planets that are really far out of the way and hard to get to kind of, you know, had a higher chance of having decent resources.
Yeah, but this kind of counteracts what we were saying, that middle planets are not as good because they're more risky. So it would make sense to make the middle planets more more rich in resources to make up for that. And
True, I suppose so.
Force people to play risky.
There's only one planet on the outer edge, I think, that's really good, and that's Core, which is on the right side of my territory, and it is amazing. Like, let me see here. Yeah, it's 44. It's almost to the point of being a home planet, which is the other thing. Like I think the way the generation works is that every player starts with a 50 resource home planet, and then there's one planet near them that's really good. It's like in the 40s, and everything else is just kind of random. Like, it seems to center good resources on your home, or good planets on your home planets, which means that taking somebody's home planet early in the game not only gives you one of the best systems in the game, but it also gives you easy access to a bunch of really good ones near it.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense, because you've got to make sure that you don't substantially disadvantage one player just by them getting a kind of a bad roll. But you know, I mean, I had fairly decent planets nearby. I mean, I was quite lucky in that regard. It was just that kind of then everything else around me was too far away. I tried all the planets that were kind of to the north of me. I had to get hyperspace range 3 before I could actually reach any of them without going through either Hermai or Blackbird's territory, which meant by the time I finally got to the point where I could expand to them, A, they then turned out to be largely shit, which was disappointing, but also it was kind of too late for me to really do much, because Blackbird and Hermai had already they'd gone up through their little chains of planets that they could get to quite easily, and had captured most of the kind of northern ridge that I was hoping to get to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the circular galaxy, because it's with the hex galaxies, you sort of have to look at each hex individually, and I think the way he generates those planets, or generates those stars, is by saying that if it's a player hex, if it's a hex that a player starts in, it's got good systems in it, and otherwise it's got really sparse ones. But with the circular one, you know exactly what shape the galaxy is going to be every time, so he might be able to put more interesting generation in there with like really expensive or really good systems in the middle to encourage fighting over that space.
But is it like the circular galaxy? Is it literally the same layout every single time, or is it just the same sort of arrangement of stars but in random positions within that?
I think it's the player positions are in exactly the same place. They're always in a perfect circle, and then everything else is up to how it generates stars, which I think is that it generates them centered on home stars. But I'm not sure. I actually have a question on the forums about how he does that, but I just posted a few minutes ago, so.
So it sounds like there were some agreements about planets out of scanning range, and I know that there were various wartime divvyings of stars, but I really wanted to see some trading of stars for tech and intelligence and science, money.
The problem is, it's kind of like, it's very expensive to do, because like the cost of, let's say you've got a planet that you've actually upgraded that's worth having, basically, if it's worth having, it's going to have decent resources, you're going to have put money into infrastructure, science, whatever. The amount of money you've put into that planet is almost certainly going to far outstrip anything that you can get in trade from it that makes it worth abandoning, so that somebody else can take it. Because, I mean, even just if you put, like, 1 point of stuff into everything, you're probably talking, like, 150 credits, which means that's, you know, early on anyway, that's worth a hell of a lot more than, you know, most of the technologies are going to be considered for.
Yeah, it would have to be before you've really invested in any infrastructure, and early on in the game when the technology is really significant. Beyond that, there's no real incentive, unless you're trying to, like, there were a couple situations where, for instance, Skelldorn offered to offered to protect me against Willikins if I gave him a few systems that would give him an avenue to attack. And if I hadn't had that agreement with Willikins, I definitely would have taken that offer and given you those systems.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a path to somewhere, it kind of makes sense. Like if you've got like I think it was you were saying between Skelldorn and Hermai, the one planet that was needed as a hop to get to another system. In those situations, it kind of makes sense because you don't want them to let them take it, because obviously it destroys the economy on the planet. So it makes sense to kind of abandon it, let them take it, then they can abandon it back, kind of thing, or whatever you want to do with it. But I think on the whole, trading planets just isn't financially viable for most of the game.
I also felt guilty about taking that planet that I had to hop to because it was quite resource rich, and then I didn't really want to do anything with it because, for one, building up too much industry would then just build up ships there and be threatening, which I didn't want.
You can see it on the far left. It's actually a 49 star.
Oh wow!
Situla.
Yes, yeah. That's probably the other example of like an outlying planet that's got good resources.
We'd organised the borders before either of us had scanning range as well, so...
That's the thing. I mean, that's why I made that deal with Kane early on, because I figured, like, if either of those planets was good, then if we could see it, then neither of us was going to want the other person to have it. Whereas if we took the position where neither of us knew what they were, then it was just a crapshoot. If one person ended up with a much better planet than the other, then, you know, it's going to be shit, but that was the arrangement. And I think it was better to do that than to leave it until one of us knew and potentially miss out on getting a good planet. As it turns out, I got a terrible planet, but, you know, it could so easily have gone the other way.
Yeah, and there was some, like Odward said, there was some divvying up of planets just before wars. I remember talking to you, Zargabox. What would you say, or, you know, supposing just in theory that somebody was to attack Blackbird?
Being drawn through the systems of where you'd want to take it. Yes, if only that had come to pass.
Yeah, I think that I said it in my diary, but I think the most significant thing that happened in this game was Blargenson and Trait going AFK, because if they hadn't, I would have had to go to war with them.
Well, that's the thing, they were both over on that side, weren't they? And it did kind of unbalance the galaxy slightly.
Yeah, it meant that I had substantially fewer enemies than I would have normally being in that position.
So, Jammy, it seemed... I stopped looking at some point, but it seemed like you expanded extremely slowly, especially in the early game, and especially when Blargenson and Crate were no more. Was there a reason for that?
I had two reasons, really. One, I didn't know what I was doing. And second, I was absolutely terrified of Anderlecht, just Anderlecht in the early game, really. There's this star on my east, my northeast is Acelis or something it's called. I forget now. I had to capture... I was trying to capture that as fast as I possibly could, because with the hyperspace range we had at that point, I saw that as kind of being a bottleneck in case he invaded. I spent so much time racing ships up there to try and capture it before he did. And when it came to the AI empires, I think the only reason I didn't invade those is because I wasn't sure if Kane wanted them, and I didn't want to start a war with him. So, yeah, I had no reason.
Yeah, because I think if I had been an evil person, I would have gone after you long ago.
I would probably have been an easy enough target.
But I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's that kind of balance between I want to just take everybody's territory now so that I win, and I'm not sure if this is a good idea. Are they allied with somebody that's going to screw me over? Will I actually be able to take them? Like, that's the other thing, is like, if you've misjudged the strength of their forces and you screw something up, then, you know, it can all go horribly wrong for you, especially early on when the defender's bonus is so significant and you really need a big ship advantage to be able to take planets.
Well, at the time, I had that ship advantage.
Yeah, you could, for example, making that mistake, you could end up, you know, being stuck sieging a single system for 5 days.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, that's the problem. I think it would be nice if there was some kind of scaling to the defender's bonus so that it was more significant, like, not so that it was more significant later in the game, but so that it didn't trail off quite so dramatically later in the game, from being like a difference of you need twice as many ships to win a battle to being a difference of you need like 10 extra ships to win a battle.
Yeah, it's hard to think of how to do that. I have put some thought into it, but with the way the mechanics are set out, it's hard to think of what a bonus could be that would scale unless it was just like 10%, a 10% difference in weapons technology or 20% difference in weapons technology.
Yeah, it does. It does open up the game though late, and that's one thing. Because you need to force people to fight basically, and since it becomes easier and easier to attack people later on. I think that does scale into these cataclysmic events that you see playing out right now. So,
yeah, that is a good point. It basically makes it so that in the early game it forces people to make deals because they can't plausibly attack anybody, so they go into diplomatic mode. And then in the late game it forces people to, renege on those deals because now they've got incredible incentive to attack because the defender's bonus is almost useless.
I guess that makes sense. Just that by the time I got kind of knackered, we were still only on sort of Tech 2 and 3, and as a consequence, the defender's bonus was pretty significant.
Yeah, by the way, quitting instead of just going AFK is what you want to do if you decide to give up, because if you go AFK, you don't get on the leaderboard, and you don't get any renown points if you care about that. If you like achievements, for instance.
That was why I quit.
We got internet points for playing. Oh man,
so many internet points.
Oh man, I got a star and 7 hearts. Is that good? That sounds good. I can see it now. What do you guys have? Let's see.
Yeah, I got two ranks. I got 2 stars and 7 hearts.
Kane's got 28 stars and 15 hearts.
There's a story behind that, and that is that the thing I said about quitting being better than going AFK, in the first Doobie game I played, everybody went AFK, and so I quit because I figured, there's nobody playing anymore, so I'll just quit. Except that by quitting, I ended the game, and since everybody went AFK, I was the only person still ranked, so I won that game. And so I got 8 points and 1 victory and a whole bunch of renown out of that.
I was wondering how you had 3 victories when you said you'd only played 2 games.
Yep. I quit a game after 1 day and somehow got a victory out of that.
That does seem to be... I joined a couple of public games just to kind of, keep a few strategies in mind. And I found that in both of them, within 2 or 3 ticks, half of the players had abandoned either quitting or going AFK. It seemed very hard to actually find one which makes it through to any kind of late game stage.
Yeah, there's the ones you joined. Did you join newbie games or did you join public games?
Public games.
Oh, okay. Because there's an option when you're creating a game to only allow premium players. And I think that's what that's for. I think the idea is that premium players are much less likely to quit early on.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I'm not a premium player, so I do not have that luxury. So when is it planned to start the next game?
Well, originally I had thought that we'd wait a few more days and then start it on Wednesday or Thursday maybe, which is what we did last time. But everybody seems really excited about getting back in, and to be honest, I am too. So I'm thinking maybe we do it on Monday or Tuesday. I really would like to see another 3 people join up so that we can get the full 16 players. But we're already at 13, and I suspect that none of those 13 are going to quit out. So we'll have a lot more people than we did in the last one.
If we started on Tuesday, that'll give me a chance to let my friend know about it.
Yeah, Tuesday sounds good. Then we just need to try and start it at a sensible time. I'm thinking, I don't know when the best time to start it is. I would say kind of early evening, but of course it's not always early evening everywhere. So it kind of then gets difficult to do it in a way that's fairly balanced. But I guess if we're doing 12-hour ticks, that kind of makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, if we pick afternoon GMT, then for most people they'll have one cycle during the day at some point, and 1 cycle while they're asleep at some point. Except for people in my time zone who will probably have 2 cycles, when they're awake.
Yeah, the only way you can kind of work.
This is going to lead to me setting an alarm in the middle of the night just to manage my feet.
Well, the only other way you can do it is you kind of have to kind of do it another way, which is if you did it at say 7 p.m. GMT, that would again realistically give you 2 ticks if everyone was awake. But then again, it kind of means that if you've got somebody who's East Coast, US, Canada, then that's in the middle of the night. well, I guess if it was West Coast, it would probably just about work out as kind of just around midnight. But it's kind of harder to judge it in a way I think that's fair for every. Well, there isn't any way you can work it out that's fair for everybody because time zones.
Yeah, well, fortunately, we've got 2 people who are in Sweden, we've got 2 people who are on the east coast of North America, and we've got everybody else is in Britain. So it's
And a duchy. You've got a duchy as well.
Oh, right. Sorry, no, I got you mixed up. Mixed up with vopperough. So yeah, but still, it's not too far off of GMT, like compared to
it's a couple of hours either way. Well, until we go forward an hour, of course.
Yeah. So as long as we base it off GMT, as long as it's reasonable for people in GMT, it'll probably be reasonable for everybody. But I'm gonna like make up some kind of a chart and see how it works out, and try to pick a time that makes sense, and then post that in the thread so everybody can take a look and vote on it.
I mean, it's fairly usable on mobile devices, so it's not like you have to kind of be at a PC to be able to kind of do it. Although it's a bit fiddly on the phone, I must admit.
Yeah. The what kind of phone do you have? Is it an Android or an iPhone?
Android.
If you do it in Google Chrome and you make a shortcut on your home screen, then when you open it up from that shortcut, it's like a full screen thing. It hides a bunch of toolbar crap that Android normally sticks in the middle, so you get a bit more screen space.
Yeah, it does that for me anyway. If you open it in Chrome, yeah, it's actually quite annoying because you can't go to the address bar anymore to get out. So you need to quit Chrome and restart if you want to do something else. But for managing the game, it really works quite well. Not as well as on tablet though, which makes you feel like an awesome space general as well.
Yeah, I used my tablet quite a lot for doing it because I was mostly at home, so it seemed no point in using my phone. And yeah, it works quite nice. I've got a Nexus 7, and it works quite nicely on that.
I have this mad plan to sort of just put it up on my TV and just leave it running at all times so that the map is just constantly ticking away.
Or you can have like a wall room. You should hang up several clocks with different time zones and.
I really need to go to the Army Surplus store and get a good hat.
What you want to do is get yourself once it's started, get yourself a very large printout of the galaxy and hang it on your wall, and just get some laminated, get some dry erase markers, and just start planning your strategy on it.
Just draw a load of lines everywhere, make it look like you've got a crazy battle plan.
I remember doing that once at a New Year's party I went to. Somebody had in their house, they had this huge world map on the wall in their dining room, and we didn't have dry erase markers and it wasn't laminated, but we still thought it would be a great idea at 2 a.m. to plot world domination on this world map that was on their wall, which thankfully they weren't too upset about the next morning. Sadly, we were never able to follow through with the plan.
Man, I'm just remembering, Odward, didn't you print out a whole bunch of stuff in order to make up battle plans? Just to...
So, the printouts were, because I was not at my computer this weekend, so to prepare for this and think through everything, I didn't have the internet, so I printed everything out. But when I was at war with Sprack, I was, I had scratch sheets of paper, a calculator. I was just constantly scribbling things. My war with Willikins was the plan was much more, just send ships, anywhere, send ships, build warp gates, send ships.
It was really scary. When I just got up and saw all those ships coming towards me, it was really scary.
And it was really interesting because there were some things. I have a list of things that I wanted to talk to Selden Bucket about, but there were some things that I learned in my war with Sprack that, under the pressure of Kane bearing down on me and Willikins betraying, I fell prey to some of the exact same mistakes that I had thought I had learned against.
Yeah, I said it in the thread. That's the thing I like about this game, is that basically it simulates you know that scene in that movie about Hitler where he just like breaks down and he starts screaming at his generals. It simulates that moment. You can be that Hitler, that freaking out Hitler.
Or you can be a better Hitler.
That's a tagline. That's a tagline for the game. You can be a better Hitler.
And I wish I was so happy that you accepted my truce, Kane. I wish that I had asked for it 8 ticks earlier. It would have changed so much.
I think that's the thing. It's like, I think partly because there's relatively little at stake, the assumption is always that people will, they will want you dead, and they will want to destroy you to the very last. But the reality is, most of the time, you can probably negotiate some kind of deal to kind of avoid being annihilated entirely, although obviously it didn't work in my case, because I just got completely destroyed, and it was in no small part my own stupid fault for launching an attack, obviously fully aware that in several ticks' time I was going to be attacked myself.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the timescale, because you know when you betray somebody, I'm gonna be next to this jerk for like 3 weeks. Like in a game of Risk, if you betray somebody, it's like, oh, it's gonna be over in a half an hour. But here, every time you do that, you're thinking, can I afford to make this enemy for a month, a whole month?
It did.
Yeah.
I have a very bad problem with morpgs, because I just can't be mean to people that I don't know who they are. And when Sprack first betrayed me, I was so upset, so livid. I started using Sprack as a curse word. I would just shout at him when I was driving in my car. And then, looking at the forums, I quickly was like, oh, you know what, I think Seldom Bucket is Sprack. And very quickly, my entire, my emotions changed, and I was like, okay, I can deal with this. I can handle this. It's okay. He's cool.
Man, it's a shame Seldom Bucket couldn't get on this.
Yeah, definitely is.
Well, he's in the forums right now.
Oh, yeah, right. Wait, he's not on mine, actually. Anyway. Yeah, I think one problem is with everyone being so nice to each other, everyone was role-playing the stand-up kind of guy who would never betray someone else.
Jammy!
Yes, except for Jammy. Yeah, he seemed to be playing that kind of character. I was, I think, the only guy who was really hard on pragmatism. And I think people say that, Skelldorn and Who Am I have been very honest all the time. I've been basically 100% honest. I never told someone I wouldn't attack them and then attack them. But, and I've always traded tech, fairly, stuff like that. But, I guess I didn't come across as being such a nice guy because I called out Kane so harshly, and then and also I think many people thought until a long time that Kane could be managed by one or two people working together, whereas at that point, I think after I took Andalect, Kane had, I think, 20 more plans than everyone else, and I think it was pretty clear at that point, to me at least, that he was going to win if nothing happened soon. And as you can see, well, he snowballed massively in the next few weeks, and really, even if Jammy joined us in the last assault, it would have been really difficult because he had so many more ships than we did.
I think the game really benefits from not knowing who the other players are. I think it's like you're saying about how you felt towards Sprack until you kind of figured out who it was. I think there is definitely an element of if people are completely anonymous to each other, then you don't have any preconceptions about anybody, and you just kind of treat them as if they're brand new people. And it also means that you don't have a preset behaviour about how you go about it, and you're much more likely to yell abuse at them or treat them in a different way to the way that you would if you actually knew who they were.
Or curse their very name to the heavens. Yeah, I wonder if I would have been attacked more if I'd been using an alias in that game, which is one of the reasons why I'm interested in I'm excited to use an alias in the next game. But then again, I have said some pretty controversial things on the forums, so there's a very good chance that half the people in the game would have hated me. Like for instance, just throwing this out there, XCOM is virtually without merit.
There is your opinion of Mass Effect as well.
I'm not going to take that bait. I do quite like the way at the end of the game it shows you all of the true aliases, which seem to map pretty accurately to the forum IDs, which I think is a nice way of kind of showing, and here's who you've been up against.
Yeah, that's a really nice reveal moment at the end.
Then you find out Odward's been playing the entire time and you had no idea.
See, I forgot about him. I completely forgot that your gambit worked perfectly. I completely forgot that you had joined the game.
We had that Guns of Icarus game a couple weeks ago, and it was Kane, Jammy, vopperough, Seldom Bucket, and me, and so we were all Wendigo Gamma people, and I think 3 of you were talking about it, and I was just sitting there. I don't think my cat was in my lap, but I was laughing maniacally.
But it'll be interesting to see. It'll also be interesting to see kind of the difference in strategies between the people who have played this round and the people who are new in the next game.
Yeah, it would be cool if we recognise people like from their behaviour, maybe like what text they research or something. That'd be cool.
I'm actually kind of nervous that the first message I send, I'm going to sign it as Willikins out of habit.
I wonder if anybody's going to say, this guy is sending a lot of messages with M dashes and semicolons in them. I wonder who this person could be.
I realized after a few messages that I'm the only American, and so I quickly started trying to be extremely vigilant about how I spoke, and tried as much as I could to spell things the British Canadian way.
The correct
sure to mention T in every message.
You racist.
T and Tim Hortons, then no one would know.
I'm gonna have to check
I
your
could really
messages
use
again.
a bagel from Tim's right now.
That's great to know, because now I can just use American spelling in all my messages and make everyone think I'm you.
I was thinking, I was really tempted to, when the next game starts up, to use somebody else's alias from this game as my in-game alias for the next one.
I was thinking about that as well, actually, yeah. That would be a great gambit. Or you could be the same person you were last time, and yeah.
Yeah, there are a few leaders that could have survived that were taken out, like Zargabox and Chairman Sprack, and Elect, all plausibly could have gotten to my territory, and I was friendly with all of them. So there's a reasonable cause to resurrect those characters if you want to.
Oh yeah, but it's just, you've got to be careful, because obviously if you just go with the same alias from the previous game, then unless you're careful, it's going to be obvious that that's you that's picked it. So, if you're not going to come up with a completely new alias, you either need to pick somebody else's, or you need to be extremely good at not behaving in the same way as you did in this game, so that nobody guesses that just because you've got the same alias, you're the same person.
No, yeah, definitely. Or we could wait until the 3rd game and then bring back Master Willikins and then see the whole galaxy.
Be dead within 2 turns. No one will trust a thing that person says ever again.
But I think nobody's going to trust anything anyone says to start with, because it's dangerous to do so, because you just don't know whether or not somebody's being truthful.
So
yeah, we've definitely learned that this game.
Yeah, but sorry.
I was just I thought this would be a good time to say I've been thinking early on this game as Skelldorn. I was trying to be honest, but I couldn't really know whether or not people actually trusted me. I started thinking about how could you play as a completely honest character and have everybody in the entire galaxy know for certain that you are. And I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm going to try to do that next game. And I'm going to there are still a few things I have to figure out, but I'm gonna publish the general idea so that everyone knows.
Yeah, he has design documents.
Yeah, I still have my Excel spreadsheets that I should probably put up at some point, but
yeah, definitely, I want to see those.
Well, it's not really a big deal. But I basically calculate the efficiency of defending, because a defending fleet will always take out a set number of ships before it goes down, obviously. So you could basically see what the efficiency of different fleet sizes was and how it declined as weapon levels increased, even for both players.
Oh, that's interesting. So now I'm thinking, if you had a really large number of carriers, and you put one ship in each carrier, you would lose all the carriers, but you would do a substantial amount of damage proportional to the number of ships you lost, because you get that first turn.
Yeah, well, so that's the point. Surprisingly, the one-ship fleet gains the most efficiency. It always remains at top efficiency, no matter how high the weapon levels get.
Although you do have to bear in mind the additional cost of having to pay for the carrier. Which...
Yeah, exactly. And also absolute cost, of course. Taking out 20 ships for your one isn't going to do a whole lot if someone has 2,000 more ships than you do. And I think it's mostly just it's not really relevant, I think, in the end, because you can't really afford to lose one ship at a time, because you'll lose so many planets in the progress.
Well, if you had a whole bunch of carriers engage individually, it doesn't combine them together when a fight happens. So if you had like 5 one-ship carriers on a planet, and your weapons technology is 10, you're going to destroy 50 ships at the cost of 5 of your own.
Or 40. Because Defender attacks first.
Yeah.
Does it really not add ships together in defense? I thought it did.
Nope.
I thought it took all the ships arriving at the planet at the same time. Yeah, it's supposed to, at least. I think it says so in the how-to guide thing.
No, the way it works is that first you attack. Basically, largest fleet attacks largest fleet, and then whichever, and then one of them is destroyed, and then the largest fleet attacks largest fleet again. The only exception is that the defender uses the ships on their planet first to attack instead of their largest fleet, and then once the ships on the planet are depleted, then it starts moving on to.
Oh, right. Okay, I didn't know that. Well, and the other point is, you should never. I've seen a couple of people do it. Anilek did this, and I think Willikins did as well. You should never throw ships at a planet if you can't take it with that number of ships, because you're basically giving the defender another turn. And so you're trading really inefficiently if you throw your ships at someone in 2 goes or 3 goes or 4 goes instead of 1 go.
The only exception to that is if you're really worried about them counterattacking you. Because in the war with Who, a few times what I did was he would have 20,000 ships depending, and I would have 30,000 ships, and I would split that into 2 15,000 ship fleets. So I know for a fact that I'm going to deplete his fleet, but if he attacked me, he would lose a lot from the defender's bonus. So.
Yeah, no, but I mean in attack. So if you attack someone, you should never send 2 fleets if you can send 1 fleet with a larger number, because you'll trade even more inefficiently than you do. And Andelek did that, and that's part of the reason why, even though I had, I think, a lot fewer fleets needed, because Andelek really closed me off from the entire galaxy. All this diplomacy you guys are talking about, I missed out on all of that, because if you look at the galaxy, Navi was his home planet. It's in the west. Mine was Burden, and then he took Jed before I could expand, which is really close to my plans, and all the things around that, basically. So I was really close off from the galaxy, and he had, well, we should remember Andelek was the largest player in the game at some point.
He was, yeah.
But he really lost a lot by throwing ships at me without taking any planets. So I did come out ahead at that point.
Yeah, the way you were locked off there, the one game that I properly played, that other than this one, was a public game, and the way I started, there was a person right below me who was, I think, 4 light years away, and they had the only way they could access the rest of the galaxy was like in your situation, was going through me, except that because they were so far away, there was only like one system they could go through, and they spent the entire first 2 weeks of the game Like she couldn't do anything. She was just trapped down there. And then finally she decides to attack me. And then I struck a deal because at the time I was like the third most powerful person in the galaxy. And I said, okay, look, you attack. I'll give you like the entire southern half of my empire, and then you attack the person that I'm fighting right now, and then we can just split their territory north to south. And she's like, yeah, okay. And she starts sending her ships over. I'm starting to get suspicious because there's like she's not building warp gates, and I'm like, you could build warp gates here. And she's like waiting like 15 hours after sending a ship, or waiting 15 hours before moving the ship onto the next system. Like she didn't know about waypoints. And then at the last minute, just like all of them turned north and right up into my territory. And yeah, it was that was the first betrayal that I saw.
It's the biggest reason I'm looking forward to a Circular Galaxy, because I really missed out, I think, on a lot. Because I was really safe, but I couldn't really do a lot. I didn't really talk to a lot of people. I never talked to Who Am I? I never talked to Blackbird until the very end. I never talked to Blackbird at all, really. And most players were dead by the time I reached Kane's border, and even then I was only bordering Willikins. So
the advantage of Circular Galaxy is that it puts everybody on equal footing in terms of the number of people that they're bordering with.
Yeah, two for every single person, yeah.
Are we going to do formal alliances?
I'm not sure about that. Like, originally I didn't want to. Like, I made a typo in that post and said that I did, but I didn't really like the idea of it because it seems kind of counter to the way the game's supposed to work. But having been thinking about it, I do think that there are advantages in a dark galaxy here, especially in this kind of galaxy.
And the double speed.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you could definitely use it as a weapon against someone. Like, you could definitely make an alliance with somebody, get sight on their territory, and then just send all that information to one of their enemies. So it does. There are options for bastardry there that I think recommend it.
I've got a couple of questions about the formal alliances. First of all, so when you've got a formal alliance with somebody, you can move ships through their territory, presumably, as well as seeing their territory.
No, when you send a ship to one of their stars, they get that ship.
Right. Okay. So you can't move through. You still can't move through their territory even when you've got a formal alliance in place.
No, but you can send them ships.
Okay. And can other people see the existence of the formal alliance?
I don't know. I assume so. It would make sense.
Are the ships restricted by normal hyperspace range?
Yes, they are.
See, that makes things a lot more interesting if other people can see who your formal alliances are.
I guess I could start a test game and check it out.
If you have a formal alliance with two people, do they benefit from your scanning that you can see from each of them?
Yeah, basically you just share, automatically share your view of the map. So
so that would be a way of verifying.
Verifying.
I was going to say, are the formal alliances transitive, or is it just a case of they are between two empires?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because
I hadn't thought about that.
If I had a formal alliance with you and Spad, but you didn't have one with each other, but suddenly you could see each other's territory, then you would know that I had the alliance with the other person.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. No, I don't know about that. I think we might have to start a test game just to see what happens.
It would definitely be interesting, because again, if you can have multi-participant formal alliances, then that gets considerably more complex, and again, it opens up a lot more opportunities in terms of kind of getting vision of the galaxy, and also seeing what other people, knowing what alliances other people have got in place.
And then what happens when you want to leave that alliance is, do you have to declare war on every single participant in the alliance?
I think you just, yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it's just declaring war, is it? You're breaking the alliance. You're not technically declaring war unless you also happen to declare war.
Well, it's described declare war, basically.
Okay.
As far as I know.
You are declaring war.
Well, I mean, effectively, you could. It's very possible you could break the alliance without intending to actually.
Yeah,
war with
I was going to
them,
say you could have a mutual breaking of a formal alliance if that was your wish.
That would lead to massive power blocks, and if someone wanted to break the alliance, they would suddenly be in the dark. So I doubt it works like that, because that would be really...
You're probably right.
That would really disadvantage people.
I would imagine that the formal alliances are purely between two participants, and that they're all mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and from the developer's point of view, that will be a lot easier to implement, like UI-wise.
I mean, hang on, guys. Oh.
So yeah, I'm thinking that's probably the most likely, although obviously we'll have to find out. But yeah, I mean, did we establish how long the Formula Alliances take to break?
12 hours.
So
it's on 12-hour cycle.
So it's dependent on the tick
yeah,
rate.
it's one cycle.
Okay, so in that case, here's a question. If you have a Formula Alliance with somebody, and you launch a load of ships to their planets, if you break the alliance such that the alliance expires before your ships reach their planets, do your ships then attack, or does it still take the fact that they were launched before the alliance was broken and thus the ships are donated to the target planets?
I do not know. The exact wording is, to end a formal alliance, a player must declare war and then must wait 24 ticks before stars can be captured once more. I would assume that, yeah, I would assume that all that matters is the tick, whether the alliance exists when the ships arrive.
Because obviously that would mean you could end the alliance and then launch your ships with say 4 ticks or 5 ticks left until the alliance expires and hit their planets like the tick after the alliance expires. But obviously, if it took the fact that you launched the ships before the alliance was broken, that would just be very unfortunate as you've donated the massive chunk of your fleet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we'll have to create a test game before we start the proper game and just to see how this works out.
Because I think Formula Alliances, I think with the Dark Galaxy, it would be beneficial to have the Formula Alliances. I think otherwise, it's early on is going to be very difficult because you'll just have no idea who's anywhere around you.
Yeah, definitely. Does anybody still have the game open right now?
Yeah, I've got it open at the moment.
Yeah.
I've got it open too.
All right, hold on. I want to try sending a test message to see if you guys receive it after the game is over. Actually, I'll send it to you, Spad, because you were eliminated. I want to see if people that were eliminated can still receive diplomatic messages.
Let's see.
All right, it's sent.
Yep.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right, so yeah, that means that the plan to have a war reporter who can post things that or post messages from the people that are still in the game. The idea I had was that the first person who's eliminated gets to be the war reporter. So that will work then. You can send messages to the first person that was eliminated, and they can repost them in the thread.
Yeah, without accidentally giving away who anyone is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Except
that's a good
obviously
idea.
the person who was eliminated.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, they don't matter. The only problem I've got with Formula Alliance is I kind of like how everything is player-driven.
Well, bear in mind, Formula Alliances aren't mandatory. They're just an option.
I know, it's just the fact that they exist will mean people will ask me to go into them, and then backstabbing them will become considerably more difficult, and that worries me.
That's exactly what I like about them.
But that's kind of the interesting thing is that you have to decide, do you want to go into a formal alliance and the benefits that you get from that, or do you want to risk just going with an informal alliance and being able to backstab them more easily?
Yeah, I guess the problem with the Dark Galaxies, it makes formal alliances a lot more powerful, a lot more important than otherwise. And they become kind of mandatory, I think, at that point. Because you can just see so little at the start of the game.
Yeah, the existence of the option means people are going to be pressured into it.
Yeah, if you refuse to go into a formal alliance, that alone is suspicious. It makes it look like you plan to.
The only thing early on is that formal alliances aren't actually going to be that useful when you start, because let's say we start the game and I contact Kane and propose a formal alliance and we go into formal alliance. If it then turns out that we're on completely opposite sides of the circular galaxy, it doesn't really give us that much of a benefit. If it turns out it's the guy right next to me, well, that's great, but you won't know that until, and like even if you know your immediate neighbours, you won't know anybody else unless you start kind of doing I'm kind of bordered by this person and like who are your neighbours, and you kind of start to build a very slow, diplomatically established pattern of where everybody is. Well, I mean, I'm not kind of married to the idea. I don't mind if we don't have formal alliances, but I do think that there are substantial benefits of there being a dark galaxy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I guess with a dark galaxy, I think if we do dark galaxy, we should do alliances, because otherwise it's going to take too long. It's going to be too fussy to play, I think, really.
And it seems like, since everybody's been enjoying it so much, it seems unlikely that this is the last Neptune's Pride game we're going to play. So there's no problem in just testing it out and seeing if it works. And then in the next game, if it didn't work out, then we don't do it.
There's no harm in trying it. I mean, I can certainly see there are benefits to the idea, but I don't know. I just kind of like the way it is. I'm probably just too stuck in old ways and like that, but I wish that the benefits of formal alliances were made separate, so like you could sell somebody your scanning data rather than having to join an alliance, or you could explicitly send somebody ships.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. Is it's all or nothing. You can't just kind of give stuff, like you can't, give tech to people for free and give ships to people easily without a formal alliance.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm just looking at the game settings now, and as far as I can tell, there is no way to just give people free technologies.
Yeah,
like,
no, not that I can see.
You have to pay to donate somebody technology, and there's no way to give anyone ships, is there? Even by kind of like if you abandon a star with ships at it, the ships are destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of dumb.
Well, it just means that there is no way to give anybody ships. Like, it's not even like you can send them to a star and abandon the star and let somebody take it. There just isn't a way of doing it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the trade-off.
Oops, you guys probably got a bunch of clicking there because I have push-to-talk bound to page up and page down, and I sometimes forget that.
Does anyone know the base cost of each infrastructure?
Yes, I put it in a thread somewhere. Let me see if I can find it.
It does say in the help as well somewhere. It's something. Well, it's based on the terraforming, the resource level of the planet.
What I'm looking at is the cost of an infrastructure is base cost times current level plus 1 divided by resources, which is what you put in the thread, Kane. But I don't know what the base cost of economy is.
I could have sworn I put that in there. Hold on, let me just check. Look.
During the last Great War, I was starting to think about economy a lot and taking economy. And for a while, I had been looking at a $9 economy upgrade as a nice $1 profit instantly. And so I started thinking about, could economy be exploited with a 2 or 3 player treaty where they basically just trade a star back and forth on a tick-by-tick basis, where whoever has the star during a tick would upgrade the economy as far as possible, paying less than 10 credits, and then the next person would gain a profit on that. And it would really... I've written some stuff out, but I don't have all the information necessary. But it wouldn't be that profitable in the early game, I don't think.
Yeah, and at the end game, the amount of money you're making off it, like even if you can upgrade it to say 40, or if you can upgrade it to say 4 economy, without starting to take a loss, your profit is going to be like what, 20 credits versus the 10,000 credits you're making every turn. So it's definitely something that could be exploited, but only to very, very marginal benefit. I'm looking at the thread now, and I said that the fixed cost is something like 250 for economy, 500 for industry, 2,000 for science, and 10,000 for a warp gate. And I'm pretty sure that's correct. I looked it up in the source code, and it's possible I was reading the code wrong, but that's what the numbers seem to be.
Okay, I missed that. I was looking for it this morning.
You read the source code.
Yeah, I just looked. It's all JavaScript, right? So it's pretty straightforward to just open up the source on the page and look at the script.
I never even thought of doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. This is scary.
I was wondering, did anyone... I know, Kane, you've been on the forums. Did anyone else submit any bugs? Because I emailed him about the carrier transfer wrong number at the top of a tick viewing bug.
Yeah, I noticed that bug too. I did send in a couple bug reports, and they more or less, some of them got fixed, and some of them he's still working on. The thing that bothers me the most is that in 8-player games, there's a bar that has all the portraits for all the empires on it. Yeah, and it doesn't happen in larger than 8-player games because he just couldn't fit the bar in there. And I suggested that he should probably try to find a way to do that, and he's evidently working on it, but he hasn't found a way that looks very good.
Why not just have like the bar be 2 bars thick? Like,
yeah,
just stack it. I mean, obviously, like when you get to like a 64-player game, it becomes impractical. But you know, it is something like, because I noticed it when I was playing one of the public games, and it's really handy just having that quick access along the top.
Yeah, I eventually just started using the left and right arrow keys, and that's sort of like it's enough, but the bar is much better. And I don't see why you couldn't just, since it only goes up to 16 before it starts going into ridiculous numbers, I don't see why you couldn't just double the size of the that little tiny bar at the top.
Yeah, I mean, like how many? I suppose on mobile devices it gets tricky, but even like it's kind of not the end of the world because you can still zoom in and out, and you know most mobile devices are 720p, so it's not like you've got a resolution issue. And I would like to think that like nobody is running like 800 by 600 on their home PC.
Yeah.
Do we know if the delay works all the time now? Carrier delay?
I was noticing weirdness with it all the way up until the end, but then I also realized that in looping orders, it also repeats the delay. So some of the errors I saw might have just been that. Like I was expecting the delay to go away once the loop went through. And
one of the things that I never got clear was, is there like if you have traveling sort of from one star to another to a third destination, is there there's presumably a 1 tick wait at the star in the middle?
Yes, you don't immediately leave. Basically, whatever tick you arrive on, no matter how far into that tick your ship would have arrived, it still waits until the end of that tick to leave again. So there's effectively
a 1 tick based delay if you've got any kind of waypointing in
up to 1 tick basically. So you do get a marginal speed improvement from having good hyperspace range. So.
Yeah, it's all the stuff that I didn't really get a chance to figure out because I got wiped out far too early to kind of have a look at it, and I just kind of some of the stuff is not particularly intuitive.
Yeah, it's not the best documented game in the world.
Oh, I've seen far worse, but yeah, you're right.
I don't know how I made it so far in the game without understanding any of this stuff. I don't know any of this until the end.
I picked up a lot of it fairly early on. Like some of it is quite intuitive, and I mean, I guess it depends on kind of what you've got experience with in terms of kind of working out how these things operate. But I mean, I picked up like all of the kind of economy, industry, science stuff. I picked up very quickly in terms of the costs and the most effective way to do it, and the very useful Galaxy screen that lets you sort by cost and upgrade from there just by clicking. But there was a lot of stuff that I just either missed completely or just didn't have time to kind of experiment with enough to understand before I got screwed over.
Yeah, that's why in the recruitment thread I suggested that people that were new people make sure they try playing a newbie game before they join, because I think a lot of us...
that'll make them better at the game. Take away our advantage.
just swallow their land and just make ourselves massive immediately.
Well, see, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, knowing our luck, we'll get clustered together on the same strip of the galaxy.
all the veterans just tearing each other apart in the middle of the galaxy. Yeah, I was going to say that Mega Slippers hasn't been in the thread at all, and I can't help but think that maybe that's because he was the first person eliminated from the game. Like, he just was smashed between the two biggest empires in the galaxy, well before he could really do anything. And I mean, it could be maybe his computer just got destroyed or something. But
I think he's had a problem with his PC because he posted in the thread I started for Dota 2 and said, if I can get my Windows machine fixed, I'd be up for it, which suggests that his PC's knackered.
Okay.
So that could well be why he's not been around much.
Yeah, that I was really worried about that. So I felt really guilty about that.
Well, he certainly tried to give you a run for your money anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. It did take quite a while for you to finally wear him down.
I was really looking forward to Skelldorn having the same problem with Sprack, and then he just destroyed him in one tick.
See, I think that Sprack would have lasted longer if he had not tried to hole up on Hydrobius. Because it just allowed me to sweep up all of his stars and gain that industry, and then use that against him.
It's the thing that I discovered. I kind of worked out very early on in being attacked, and it just clicked that you cannot turtle. Like, this is not a game. This is not an RTS. It is not a classical 4X game. You cannot withdraw your fleet to a kind of a minimum perimeter and defend, because you will lose just simply by weight of numbers, because you lose the planets, you lose the economy, you lose the infrastructure, you lose the science, and they're all gained by the attacker, and you will lose. It'll may take longer for you to lose than if you just kind of, try and fight, but ultimately you will lose the fight because you can't outpace them in terms of infrastructure, economy, and technology.
Yeah, and it also gives up your defender's bonus, basically, because you allow the defender to take everything, and then you'll have to fight an uphill battle, so you give up your advantage.
Yeah, as soon as you lose a planet, it's doubly bad, because on the one hand you've lost the planet, and you've given them money for capturing it, and you've lost the economy if you take it back, but also you then are fighting against the defender's bonus to try and recapture it.
Yeah, I wonder why that worked for Mega Slippers, but it didn't work for anybody else. Like, his systems were relatively well developed, and I did capture all of them.
I think it was early enough. I think it was just early enough on that there wasn't a big enough disparity in the number of ships. I think if it had been a bit later in the game, you'd probably just been able to wipe out his ships in one go. But because it was early enough that the defender's bonus was fairly significant and the differential in the number of ships wasn't that huge, that it took much longer for you to take it down. Whereas by the time it got to the point where kind of Sprack was being wiped out, the defender's bonus had become less significant, the number of ships had increased dramatically, and I think it was just much easier to take somebody out quickly than it was earlier on.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Because if it had been that late in the game that you'd taken Mega Slip, I think you probably just would have been able to destroy his fleet in one go and be done with it. But I mean, you took him at a point where you were probably weapons tech 2.
I seem to remember that developing weapons tech 2 was a major breakthrough in that war.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's hardly surprising, because if you think about it, if you were still weapons tech 1 when you started that fight, and he was weapons tech 1, you were effectively having to have double the number of ships just to win. Whereas, I don't know what tech level that Skelldorn was at when he took out Sprague.
Yeah, that was probably a significant factor too.
I had even tech when I guess 1 up, so even with defender's bonus when I sent my first attack on Hydrobius. But then
and then something happened.
Something happened
between that point.
I'm not saying anything.
But yeah, I think as we established later on in the game, it becomes much easier to attack because the defender's bonus becomes much less significant. You don't need overwhelming force to be able to win a fight.
Yep, that makes sense.
Which again was kind of my problem, was that I kind of benefited to some extent because obviously I had the higher defender's bonus, but my ships were spread out. I had my ships spread between my east and western flanks, and I just didn't have enough on either side to hold off the forces. And if I concentrated them on one side, I'd have just completely lost the other side. And again, I'd have then even if I'd seen off one attack, I'd have then turned around and wouldn't have been able to do anything.
I gotta bail and get another glass of water. So, feel free to say rude things about me while I'm gone. Please ignore the recording symbol next to my name, because that's not happening or anything.
I wonder what that was.
Yeah, I'm also.
Yeah, it popped up earlier in the.
Yeah, that I tried. I did a test recording and nothing showed up in a folder. So I also have FF Split open, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I've not tried the mumble recording stuff. I don't know how well it works. Possibly not very well at all. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's probably hugely unreliable because it's open source software and is probably therefore works on the guy who wrote the software's machine and nowhere else. And if you report it as a bug, then you'll just have the bug closed and be told that you're doing it wrong.
That's a very cynical view.
I set up a Mumble server the other day on. It's very easy to do on Linux because if you've got any Debian-based stuff set up, it's just a pre-built package. But still, configuring it is a complete pain in the arse compared to something like TeamSpeak, which most of it can just be done through the UI. But of course, no. Mumble is open source, which means everything has to be done through config files using cryptically named variables. And, you have to have specific configurations of things set up, otherwise it won't quite work properly because, the developers have a particular target that they're building for because that's what they use. Whereas, as a general rule, commercial software tends to, care about whether it works on someone else's machine or not.
It is a good idea.
I like it being free, but at the same time, it would be nice if the UI wasn't horrible and it was vaguely usable.
Those are good things, yeah.
I have a question about how people dealt with their operating budget. Did anyone save up anything every cycle?
I never did, because I think you want the benefits from your money. It's not doing anything sitting there, I guess.
I always kept a little bit aside until just before the end of the cycle, in case I needed money in an emergency, either to buy carriers or to trade technologies or anything like that. But I spent the majority of it at the start of each tick because obviously your science and your industry benefit the second you upgrade them, or at least the tick you upgrade them.
Yeah.
Saving between cycles makes no sense.
Yeah, no. As long as there is something you can, as long as there is something that is affordable that you can spend the money on, you should spend it by the end of the tick.
If you spend it on economy, then you're making back your money. If you spend it on the very end of the cycle, then you're making back your money at the start of the next one, anyways.
Well, not necessarily, because the amount that you increase it by isn't always. Yeah,
I guess I was actually bitten by that once when I did spend all my money right at the end before I was planning to attack Kane, and I was going to make a massive play where I was going to build a warp gate and basically take one of his really good, really fully defended systems before he would wake up and see it. And, well, both he was awake at the point I attacked, which was unfortunate, but also I'd forgotten that I'd already spent all my money and I couldn't buy a warp gate. So I was really, really put behind because I forgot to keep some money separate. So it's one of the things I put in that guide I wrote, that you should always have some money for that kind of thing.
Yeah, you should always have an emergency fund, but also early on, especially when you're still kind of colonising planets that are outside of your scanning range. But again, it won't be such a factor this time because it's a dark galaxy, but you want to save a bit of money, because if you capture that planet and it's got massive resources, then you don't want to be in a position where you've just spent 100 credits on upgrading planets that were more expensive. And if you just waited a couple of ticks, you could have got a much better deal on the planet that you've captured.
I had a
That
bad
sounds tragic when that happens.
I had a bad habit of forgetting that I was about to come into new terraforming tech and then spending money on upgrades.
Oh god, yeah. But like literally, I lost probably $10,000 on that mistake over the course of the game.
I did that a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, I think aside from keeping 25 or 50 credits around so that if you desperately need a carrier, you can get hold of one, I think I generally tended to spend all of my credits towards the start of the cycle unless I had a specific reason to delay spending it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense for industry and science, but for economy, you definitely want to delay a little bit.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you want to leave it till the end if you can, because obviously you don't lose anything by doing so, and you potentially get a better, more efficient spending of your money.
Kane, do you know what happens if you give an AI a tech and they don't have the level you have? Like, if you give a 4, will they give you just one of something, or will they give you 2 2s?
I don't know. There was some discussion of it on the Google Plus page, but I didn't look into it very deeply. I think they just do their best to give you whatever the highest level thing they have that you don't have. I'll see if I can track it down, though. Oh, speaking of which, there is... he's got a plan to include some type of spying or espionage system in, so you can build something on a star that makes it hides the stuff on that star from other players, even if it's within their scanning range, and maybe some way of countering that.
That could be interesting.
I like that idea.
Kind of depends on what it shows. 'Cause if it shows that it is hidden, then there's something nice there. Or it would be nice if it would be nice if it projected the image of it having very little infrastructure or something like that.
Yeah, what would be really nice if you could set what it shows.
Yeah, you could even tempt people into attacking planets that don't have any.
Exactly. You build this device on the planet, and you can then set what it shows is in terms of industry, science, economy, number of ships, size of resources, that kind of stuff. Yeah, you could just you build it and you tempt somebody into attacking what looks like a really high resource planet with loads of economy, and it's actually completely shit with nothing on it.
More ways to deceive people I would like in this game, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing about this. It's very it is very simplistic in its systems, and there is one thing you can do, which is attack people, and there's not much else in terms of any other things you can build. So it would be nice to have a few more options in terms of strategy.
Yeah, it is. I really want to see more games that are in this playing out in the background style, this real-time style, that are a little bit deeper. Because
do you ever play Planetarian?
No. Because
that is basically a much more complicated version of this, which I think is still going. I played it way back in 2000, and it's basically a tick-based space colonization / combat game, but with way more complexity. You've got 6 or 7 different classes of ship, and way more stuff that you can build in terms of infrastructure on your planets and kind of orbital defenses and spy probes and that kind of stuff. And is a much big the games were hundreds of players, thousands of players kind of thing. But that was really interesting to play back in the day.
I'll have to check that out.
Pretty sure it's still going.
Yeah, the game I was making, the Forex game I'm making, one of the things I wanted to do was make sure that terraforming. I wanted to make sure that terraforming was something that takes a really long amount of time, like compared to, it shouldn't take you the same amount of time to build a ship as it does to terraform a planet, which is what it does in like Galciv or Endless Space. But the scale needs to be huge. Like, it needs to be decades to terraform a planet, and that doesn't work if you want to have like 1 week terms or 1 month terms, or turns rather. And one of the things I thought about for fixing it was having a real time mode that has the correct time scale, and then having a regular turn-based mode that's more compressed time scale. But I just wasn't sure if something that complex could work in real time. Like, but if Planetarium has been successful, well.
There you go.
Oh, there it is.
Link to it. It looks like they have just finished a round on Friday, in fact. So the next round starts on the 21st of March and runs for 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yes, it runs for a month.
All right, I found on the forum, or on the Google Plus thing, about the trading with the AIs. Basically, they have an 80% chance of sending you something random.
When you trade with them, or just randomly?
When you trade with them, they
Right.
they have an 80% chance of sending a random technology.
Probably similar to player behavior.
Yeah. Actually, did anybody betray on tech trade this time, except for Mega Slippers, who may not even have been playing at that point?
No, but I didn't really make any technology trades. I made a couple of trades with you, I think, but mostly I just gave away all my technologies just before I died.
I never betrayed on a trade either.
I just figured it would be a bad idea to do, because it's just an immediate incentive for somebody to warn everybody else not to trade with you.
Yeah.
And at that point, then that really hampers your ability to advance if everyone turns around and goes, no, we know you're not trustworthy.
What would be great is giving someone a tech and then claiming that they had betrayed you in a trade, and it would be your word against theirs.
That's true. But you could actually verify at least that if you looked at the graphs after the ticks had progressed, that person's technology went up and the other person's technologies didn't change, that, something was going on. I mean, it could just be coincidence. Their research finished, but...
You can basically force them into trading with you, because if they don't trade with you, they're ostracized, and if they do trade with you, well, you gain the tech, but they have to keep up their reputation. They need to trade with you, basically.
Yeah, but like I said, it should, unless you're very devious about it, it should be possible to verify who's telling the truth just by looking at the intel graphs of the technology advancements.
No, I said you do actually give them a tech, and they just say that there was a trade and he didn't follow through with it.
Ah, I see what you mean. Do it that way around. Yeah, I guess you could do, and that would make it very difficult to do. But on the other hand, you could just take, in that situation, the risk, the thing is, you either get you're getting a free technology, and you either then take the reputation hit, or you do a normal, reasonable trade. So it's a weird way to extort somebody. It's like, I've given you something for free. Now either you give me something in return, or I'll do something nasty to you.
Yeah, that's true.
But it could be useful as a diplomatic ploy. Like if Glorbax had wanted to turn everybody against Kane in that game, that might have been something that he could have done early on in that 2-week period where nothing was happening, to try to destroy Kane's reputation.
Yeah,
it's also
true.
It's also a good way to legitimize a war. If I'd wanted to start a war with Blackbird earlier, I could have done that, and because I was playing someone honest.
Why do I only think of these kind of things now? This is amazing.
He sent me, forwarded me some messages between Kane, and Sprack, and I started thinking, is someone going to start using this forwarding messages thing to start putting false words in other people's mouths?
I was going to say spreading misinformation by.
I was definitely thinking about doing that. I was definitely thinking about doing that with someone. I don't know when I thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of the we were talking in a thread about how to send, or how to tell people how, what the background is for a faction in the new game and how we're supposed to be addressed. And one of the ideas I had was to just basically take a screenshot, or basically take a screenshot of you telling somebody else an anonymous email address they could send something to. Right, no. Hold on. Yeah, I'm getting confused. Anyway, the point was, it relied on the fact that those diplomatic messages can't really be faked. But then I thought, well, people absolutely would go in and use Photoshop to change the text on those messages. And then I started thinking about how that actually could be used in game to like post something on the forums and like claim that somebody had betrayed them.
Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could spread all kinds of misinformation just by doctoring images and making it look like people had said things that they hadn't, or that people were people that they aren't.
Yeah, like, frantically taking notes.
You know, if you wanted to be particularly devious, you could post what appeared to be a message from, say, Kane to me. I could post it on the forums, thus seemingly revealing who I am. Yet in reality, it's a doctored image, which means that I've actually put somebody else's names in, and thus reveals no useful information whatsoever. But everyone thinks that I've slipped up and accidentally revealed who I am.
Actually, Jammy, did you do that on purpose in the last game? Because I remember there was a thing where you posted the Empire stats, and you forgot to include Skelldorn.
No, that was actually a mistake. I spent ages carefully editing Space Willikins so that it would look just like everyone else and wouldn't have the grayed out buttons. Then I forgot to put Skelldorn in, and it made it look like I was Skelldorn, which I was kind of happy about in a way because it was throwing suspicion elsewhere. But that was just an honest mistake. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I was pretty much certain that you were Willikins at that point because of the medals.
Yeah, friggin' medals. I did not know that would be so obvious. I was actually kind of worried that it might show up who I am, but I thought, no, it won't do that.
And it's really dumb too. Like, there's no reason that it should give you a medal for giving somebody a medal. Like, that doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
No, that's kind of surely, like, that's ridiculous then, because then you just go around giving people medals and getting them yourself.
Well, there's only the one medal. It's the you gave somebody a medal, basically.
It's a very patronising medal to get, actually. It's really silly. It's like something you get in a school for being nice, but I didn't think that they would do that, because it kind of gives away who I am. But,
yeah, that does seem a little stupid.
Yeah, well, they didn't know we had the forum, really, did we? Did they? So.
No, that's true. It does. It also makes me think of when you get absolutely ridiculous achievements in games. Like Hitman Blood Money had one for running the benchmarking tool. Not Blood Money, Absolution had an achievement for running the benchmark from the menu. It's like, how is that an achievement? You have successfully clicked on an option in the menu and not soiled yourself. Here, have an achievement.
There's a lot of achievements like that.
Internet points, man, they're the best.
I get the whole, we'll give you an achievement just for completing each section of the game, which, I mean, I suppose is technically an achievement, but kind of seems like that's what you're going to do anyway. But when they start doing that whole kind of hit, like, I can't remember which one it was, there was some game, I can't remember which one it was, that was famous for it, where, like, all of the achievements are basically unlockable in, like, the first 30 seconds, because the person who put them in out of spite after the whole game was redone from scratch.
Yeah, I was going to say that those achievements that you get for completing part of the game, like part of the actual main plot of the game, I really don't like those. Like, when I was playing The Walking Dead episode 2, season 2, episode 2.
No spoilers, please.
Oh, well, I won't, but it's just like you get 10 achievements over the course of playing a 1-hour episode. That's not terribly impressive, and everybody gets those achievements, of course.
It's all kind of comes out from Xbox Live and the gamer score and the limits on the points that can be put into a game that Microsoft set. So it's like you must have like 1,000 points in each of your games. So if your game is only like 20 minutes long, well, you've still got to have your full, unless it's one of it used to be the Xbox Live ones with like 400 or whatever it was. But if you've got a game that qualifies as a 1,000-point game, even if it's 15 minutes long, you've got to put 1,000 points worth of achievements in there. Now, you could just put one achievement at the end, but people expect there to be multiple achievements. And equally, if your game is 100 hours long, you've got to kind of divvy it up really stupidly to kind of separate those out so that it's not like one point for each achievement kind of thing. And it's one of the many things that Microsoft have kind of broken is that because of the way of the Xbox Live, they forced people to do things in these weird ways.
Yeah, there's speaking of internet points, there's actually a site for Steam achievement stats that ranks you based on your rare achievements, and gives you points based on how many rare achievements you've got.
Yeah, PC Gamer does that as well, I think.
Well, I mean, you can do it in the Steam profile itself. You can add the achievement showcase, because I've done it, because it's like you've got to have something up there. So I just put the achievement, and it just shows like the 6 rarest achievements that you've got across like globally. And I mean, like all the ones I've got are like 2% of players or fewer have got them, but none of them were particularly like I didn't go for them specifically because I thought, oh, they'll be hard achievements. It was just stuff that I picked up while I was playing games. And it's like they're rare achievements. Like, oh, okay, well, this shows that people... But some of them seem really weird. They're really easy ones to do, but people just haven't done them for whatever reason.
Yeah, this website, though, like, they literally assign a point value to every achievement based on its rarity, and then you collect points. Like, it's not just these achievements are rare. It's like these achievements are worth 1.7 points.
But it's even dumber because almost all of certainly all of the early Steam games, and even now, quite a few of them, as far as I'm aware, has got a thing that basically means that... sorry, I've got text-to-speech annoying the crap out of me because you posted that link.
It's doing that for me too.
Have the stats were client-side for the achievements. So you can go and you can download a Steam achievement unlocker, which will unlock achievements for like all of the games that you've got, apart from those that have subsequently been changed so that the achievements are done server-side, so you can't do it anymore. So it becomes even more meaningless because it's like trivial to game it.
Yeah.
But it's like the other thing that really annoys me about the way that Microsoft's coming to Xbox Live is the whole DLC thing. Like Microsoft they've relaxed slightly, but they were really strict on people not giving stuff away. Like if it was a patch, that was fine. Like you had to pay, obviously, the whole Fez thing. And the reason that Team Fortress never got updated on the Team Fortress 2 never got updated on the Xbox because they wanted like whatever it was, 10 grand per patch, and Valve have released like 1 billion patches for Team Fortress 2. But also like they wouldn't let people give stuff away for free, so you have to charge for DLC, which means they then feel they have to charge on the PC as well. And so with a few exceptions, stuff that would have been free, you have to pay for.
Yeah.
Consoles
really
are the
shitty.
piece of all human evil.
Well, yeah, but you know what you're going to do. But it annoys me. It's like people talking about the Titanfall and the map packs and the fact you can get season pass and all the rest of it, and the map packs are inevitably going to massively fragment the player base. But like, wasn't that long ago that the thought of paying like 10 quid for like 3 new maps would just have been laughable. It was like you went onto like File Planet and you downloaded a zip file with like 500 maps in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you found the 10 that were actually playable. But like the idea of charging for like shitty content like that is just, it's kind of depressing that it's now just expected.
It would have been outrageous if you did that in Unreal Tournament. People would have gone nuts.
Well, and the biggest problem is the way that they've done it. Like Call of Duty had it as well with the whole player-based fragmentation. If you release 3 map packs, then that's like, you know, effectively you're splitting the player base into 24 groups based on those who buy no map packs, those who buy all the map packs, and those that buy some combination of the map packs. And like, so that massively screws up your player base, and you can't pick what maps to play on. So you can't even have like, well, we'll just play on maps that everyone's got today. It just won't let you play with someone if they've got a different map pack to you.
Yeah. And like, it's not like Titanfall has a tremendous amount of content for the price it is.
No, it's like 9 maps, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the problem with Titanfall is much worse, because with Call of Duty it was all host-based multiplayer. So if you wanted to like get together with your mates and say none of us will buy the map packs, then you just could play together. But Titanfall's server-based, but you can't run your own server. So it's like, at what point are EA going to say, well, we're not going to bother running servers for people who haven't bought any map packs anymore? And then suddenly you can't play unless you... They could literally hold you hostage and say, either you buy the map packs or you can't play Titanfall anymore.
Yeah, it kind of puts a timer on, or an expiration date on online multiplayer, I guess.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's the other thing, of course, is that ultimately Titanfall will get shut down at some point when EA decide it's no longer profitable, and then you just won't be able to play it because there is no offline mode. I'm looking, and there are still Quake 2 servers running with people on them. Not a lot, But like last time I checked, just randomly in the middle of the day, there were like 150 people playing Quake 2.
Yeah, I still play. I still install UT 2004 at least twice a year and play through the campaign in Godlike. And like, yeah, I'm not going to do that with anything that was made in the past, 5 years.
It's crazy that like people are still playing Quake 2, and like now on average, what EA shut down their servers after 2 or 3 years for most of their multiplayer stuff. Certainly their yearly franchises like the Madden and FIFA and that lot. So that kind of, when you're paying like 45 quid for Titanfall, or less if you get it from Russia, but you know, if you buy an Origin, it's 45 quid just for the little 60 quid for the digital deluxe version. Then that's a hell of a lot of money to be paying for something that you won't be able to go back and play at some point in the future because EA have decided, not worth it anymore.
Yeah, I don't mind it that much when it's like Madden or some other annual series because there's not a tremendous amount of... there's not really that much reason to go back to play old versions of Madden.
No, and I suppose there is the expectation that, well, it's going to be replaced next year anyway with exactly the same game but with different players in it.
For about £50, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say I don't like EA's thing of like charging 45, like because they did it with the Old Republic as well. That was like 45 quid on Origin. It's like I get like Steam quite often will Steam will generally release stuff at RRP or maybe like 10% off if you pre-order it. But EA seem to actively charge more than like the RRP for their games, and it's like why?
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously people are buying them, but I also found it hilarious when the Old Republic came out that at one point it was out of stock on Origin.
That used to happen on Steam.
I genuinely have no idea how that works.
God.
It's like, have they run out of internets?
Well, to be fair, given how terrible EA's servers are, maybe they just couldn't accommodate any additional players.
It's just...
Origin is a terrible system, just in general. Even like online connectivity, when I want to play something like Dead Space 3 or Mass Effect or multiplayer with a friend, we need to... It only works if we first enter the shop. We open Dead Space 3 or Mass Effect 3, then we open the download DLC menu in-game, so that's a menu option, and then we exit out of that and we join. Then it works. Otherwise, it won't work. We won't be able to connect. So
There's so many conspiracy theories regarding that.
Yeah, exactly. We are thinking maybe they are really shunting us through the online store, but that just sounds too ridiculous to be true. But
the thing is, as much as I hate Origin for many reasons, not least the fact that it's EA behind it, in reality, it's not that much worse than Steam was when Steam started. The problem with that argument is, like, people always put it with MMOs and they compare it to WoW and say, well, WoW was fucked when it started. It's like, yeah, it was, but that was like 10 years ago, and a lot of lessons have been learned by then that you really should have learned yourselves. And, like, some stuff you can't avoid, and, like, the servers being overloaded and misanticipating demand, but some of the stuff, like, the early versions of Origin, if you ticked the remember my details for logging on to Origin when it started, it didn't like store them somewhere and just log you on. When you started Origin, it actually used some kind of like auto-it scripting facility to type the details in. Because which I discovered when I accidentally started Origin with caps lock on, and it came up with invalid password because it had typed my password in all in caps.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It was. I thought, what the? Why is it my password?
I was a huge Westwood fan back in the day, and I was involved in like the CNC modding community. So believe me when I say I loathe EA.
I lived like
entirely.
5 minutes down the road from the Bullfrog Studios in Guildford.
Yeah, R.I.P. Bullfrog.
Well, you say it's Origin isn't much worse than Steam when it first started, but I think that Origin isn't much worse than Steam like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, because
it was quite bad.
Yeah, I've literally had conversations with Steam customer support people where they've said the exact phrase, "In order for Steam offline mode to work, you need to be online."
Yeah, so we've kind of drifted off topic.
That text-to-speech thing is really quite terrifying.
Odward, it would have been better if you just spoken, because
yeah, you could just interrupt anytime.
It's a little scary.
Instead of the Windows text-to-speech woman just starts talking at you.
But you did it again!
You bastard!
You bastard.